There's a reason the name Solomon echoes through every corner of occult history, not just as a king, not just as a prophet, but as something far more dangerous, the man who spoke to demons and made them kneel. Across centuries, cultures, and continents, his name surfaces in whispers, not in sermons, but in spells, in the margins of cursed grimoires, in rituals carried out in cellars and ruins by those who dare to command forces older than language. And almost every one of those rituals begins the same way, in the name of Solomon. But the truth is far stranger than legend, because there isn't just one Book of Solomon. There are many. Some are respected, some are feared, some are outright forbidden, not because they're false, but because they tell too much. And what's worse, many of them contradict each other. Different voices, different instructions, yet always the same signature, always the same seal. The Testament of Solomon, the Key of Solomon, the Lemegeton, or Lesser Key. Then come the fragmented texts, the Black Book, the Book of the Angel Raziel, the Hexaemeron of Solomon. Each one purports to unlock a different layer of reality, commanding spirits, binding angels, summoning intelligences of the planets, reading minds, shaping fate, or even, if the old warnings are true, rewriting the laws of creation itself. They've been found in desert ruins, buried in monastery vaults, scratched onto bone fragments, encoded in astronomical charts. Some have been rewritten so many times that no one knows what the original said. Others have never been seen in full, but still somehow appear in the dreams of those who go looking for them. And then there are the books that never existed, or were never meant to. Texts referenced in footnotes of other grimoires, described by alchemists who went mad trying to finish them. Books that complete themselves only when read aloud. Books that refuse to burn. Books that disappear after a single reading and leave something behind in their place. This is not just a story about ancient texts. It's about power that cloaks itself in myth, so we mistake it for metaphor. Power encoded in pages written with more than ink. Power that has passed from mouth to mouth, hand to hand, not to preserve it, but to contain it. Because what Solomon bound under seal was not simply knowledge, it was hunger, and it still listens. So if you've ever felt the pull towards symbols you don't recognize but somehow understand, if the word Guaitia feels heavier than it should, if a certain ring or sigil seems familiar though you've never seen it before, then maybe you've already touched one of these books. Or maybe one of them has already touched you. Welcome back to Tales from the Forbidden Library, where the lost and the locked away speak once more. If this kind of truth claws at the edges of your memory, let it echo, let it linger, and let the library know you're listening. Long before grimoires became commodities, before spellbooks were bound in leather and locked in university vaults, there was a text whispered across the sands of ancient Jerusalem. Not a holy scripture, not a tale of kingship or prophecy, but a confession, a warning, a diary of sorts, written not to inspire, but to survive. It was called the Testament of Solomon. This was not the wise Solomon of Sunday sermons, not the son of David praised for his fairness and justice. This Solomon was haunted, not metaphorically, literally. He spoke with demons, he commanded them. And if the testament is to be believed, he didn't just banish spirits. He used them as architects, as messengers, as laborers in the construction of the first temple. The text claims that Solomon was given a magical ring by the archangel Michael, engraved with a divine seal that could bind demons by name. With it, he interrogated them, asked their purpose, their lineage, their weaknesses, and in return, they revealed secrets too dangerous for most mortals to hear. Secrets of disease, of ruin, of love turned sour and kingdoms turned to dust. Each demon spoke as if desperate to be heard, but laced their truths with poison. These weren't just spirits of chaos. They had functions. One caused jealousy among lovers. Another whispered in children's dreams. One could wither crops with a glance. Another could mimic a voice and drive families apart. Some claimed to be fallen stars. Others, fragments of pre-human gods. And each of them, every last one, was known by name. Names that still appear in modern occult texts, sealed under talismans and triangles, summoned in languages no longer spoken aloud. Solomon recorded them all. Their ranks, their signs, their hierarchies. The demons would resist at first, but with the ring and certain incantations, long since fragmented and buried in mistranslations, he brought them to heel. He made them build. He made them confess. And sometimes he made them bleed. But the deeper he went, the more he changed. The text shifts in tone. Solomon begins with curiosity, almost divine authority. But soon the voice becomes doubtful, paranoid. He writes of shadows that linger in daylight, of whispers behind walls, of dreams where he sees himself, not as king, but as prisoner. And in those dreams, the demons no longer fear him. He describes one spirit in particular, a being not listed among the 72 demons he catalogued. It had no name, only a symbol burned into its skin. It did not speak, it only watched. When Solomon tried to bind it, it vanished, and then began appearing in his mirror, always silent, always smiling. This is where the testament turns from inventory to revelation. Solomon confesses that he used the spirits not only to build the temple, but to spy, to kill, to curse rivals and seduce those who doubted his power. He admits that the ring changed him, that he no longer heard the voice of God clearly, only the hum of voices behind the veil, waiting for him to sleep. The manuscript ends abruptly. Not with death, not even with warning. Just a final passage, crudely scrawled, as if in haste. I write this not to boast, but to atone. For what I summoned will never sleep again. And though I buried the ring beneath stone and silence, I still feel its weight, even in dreams, especially in dreams. Historians have argued over the testament's authenticity for centuries. The earliest known copy is from the 1st to 3rd century CE, written in Greek, long after Solomon's time. But fragments in older dialects exist, scraps found in Ethiopian scrolls, Egyptian amulets, and coded into Babylonian star charts. The identity of the author is unknown. Some say it was written by Solomon himself. Others believe it was scribed by someone who found the ring and needed to confess what they'd done with it. What makes the testament truly terrifying is how much of it has survived. Specific demon names, hierarchies, ritual instructions, it all appears again centuries later in other texts. And those texts did not know each other. Yet somehow, the voices were the same, as if the demons themselves remembered. And if the names still hold power, then the ring may not be legend, it may be waiting. If the testament was a confession, then the key of Solomon is a blueprint, not a story, a manual. It does not ask whether you should command spirits, it assumes you already have. It doesn't question your soul, it questions your timing, your planetary alignment, the purity of the knife in your hand, and the hour of the moon. It is a book that dares you to open the door, while listing, in exquisite detail, how to keep it from slamming shut behind you. First appearing in Latin manuscripts during the Middle Ages, the Clavicula Salomonis is said to be far older, its roots whispered to reach back to the 1st century, perhaps even earlier. Unlike the Testament, it bears no narrative, no parable. It is geometry, blood, ash, and silence. Its instructions are precise, obsessive even, how to craft a circle of protection, what kind of ink to use, fresh gall of a white dove mixed with myrrh, and the exact moment during the planetary cycle a spirit must be addressed, or not at all. There is a tone in the key that scholars often miss. It isn't reverent, it's fearful. The words are written as if dictated by someone who has seen what happens when the ritual fails by even a single syllable. There are prayers, yes, but not to invoke divinity. They're there to keep the practitioner alive, to slow the bleeding, to shield the mind. The key is divided into 2 books. The first is ritual, how to summon, constrain, bind, and dismiss spirits. It is the bones of ceremonial magic, sigils, circles, invocations, and planetary associations. The second is preparation, the purification of tools, the sanctification of robes, the timing of breath. Some sections insist on silence for 40 days. Others demand abstinence, fasting, or bathing in spring water untouched by sunlight. What's most curious is what the key does not contain. No names of demons, no specific identities. It speaks only of spirits or intelligences, leaving the reader to fill in the blanks. Some believe this was to protect the initiate. Others say it was a trap, that the original names were removed not to hide them, but to keep them hungry. Several versions of the key exist. Italian, Greek, Hebrew, even Arabic adaptations have surfaced. But they all share the same structure, same ritual circles, same language of planetary hours, same warnings. The margins of older manuscripts often include cryptic annotations in different hands. Some are corrections, others seem to be personal notes. This spirit lies, or do not trust the third hour. He waits. One French copy, discovered in the 18th century, contains an entire hidden chapter scrawled in invisible ink, revealed only under heat. It describes a ritual not found in any other version, one that requires no tools, no chants, no names, only silence and breath and patience. It ends with a single line. He who waits long enough does not need to summon. The veil will lift for him. The influence of the key is vast. Nearly every Western magical system that came after borrows from it. The Golden Dawn, the Rosicrucians, Aleister Crowley. Even modern chaos magicians admit its framework underpins their practice. And yet, few understand its source, or how many versions of it were copied, edited, or manipulated by scribes who claimed authority they never earned. One British occultist in the 1920s claimed he found a version of the key where the pages reordered themselves depending on who held it. He reported seeing words in a language he had never studied, but still understood. He burned the book after performing a ritual that caused his mirror to reflect a face that wasn't his. It watched him, smiled, and spoke his name, but not the name he was born with. Some scholars suggest the Clavicula Salomonis was never a book in the traditional sense. It was a living system, a pattern encoded into the very laws of spiritual manipulation. And the book itself, just one of many vessels, temporary containers for something far older, something that still exists, just waiting for the right person to open it correctly. Because the key of Solomon doesn't unlock a door, it is the door. If the key of Solomon was the doorway, then the lesser key, known as the Lemegeton, is what waits on the other side. Unlike its predecessor, the Lemegeton is not a single book. It is a compendium. 5 volumes, each its own labyrinth of spirits, systems, and sorcery. Ars Goetia, Ars Theurgia Goetia, Ars Paulina, Ars Almadel, and Ars Notoria. The texts do not whisper, they command. They do not ask for purity, they ask for accuracy. They speak in names, in hierarchies, in the precise geometry of power. And at its center lies the most dangerous gift, the ability to call upon entities once bound by King Solomon himself. The most infamous section is the Ars Goetia, which lists 72 spirits, often called demons, each with a sigil, a seal, and an identity. They are described not as monsters, but as rulers, princes, dukes, marquises, presidents of hell. Each one has a domain, a temperament, an offering, and a price. Some grant knowledge, others manipulate love or war. Some whisper secrets of the future, while others dismantle the soul slowly, with precision. These are not vague archetypes. They have names: Baal, Paimon, Astaroth, Buer, Glacia, Labolas, Vapar. They are not to be worshipped but worked with, commanded, controlled. The magician must be bold, not pious but exacting, because even the slightest error in invocation risks not just failure, but deception. And the goatic spirits are known to lie when given the chance. The Ars Tirgiaguetia complicates the structure. Here, spirits are not merely infernal, but aerial, linked to directions, winds, and planetary forces. It introduces dualities, spirits of light and darkness within the same class, each with opposing intent. The map becomes more abstract. The line between angel and demon begins to blur. Then comes the Ars Paulina, drawn from the writings of the Apostle Paul, but twisted into something far stranger. It details spirits that govern the hours of the day and night, each associated with specific zodiacal positions. These spirits don't offer favors. They adjust time, they open passages, they unlock visions, but only if the practitioner's soul aligns precisely with the heavenly configuration, a feat requiring astronomical, spiritual, and psychological precision. The Ars Almadel introduces the construction of a wax tablet, a small sacred altar covered in names, candles, and ritual inscriptions. The spirits here are of a different kind, quiet, rare. They do not arrive in flame, but in dream, in sound, in color that has no earthly name. They govern the divine, the unspoken, the layers between frequencies. Summoning them isn't theatrical, it's meditative, but those who reach them rarely return with their sanity intact. Finally, the Ars Notoria, the oldest, the most cryptic. It contains no demons, no sigils, no infernal geometry, only words. Long, complex prayers written in twisted Latin, Greek, Hebrew, and languages that do not appear in any other text. Reciting them was said to grant instant mastery over any subject: rhetoric, logic, mathematics, music, alchemy. But every practitioner who completed the Notoria described one unanticipated result: visions. Not hallucinations, not dreams, but voices speaking in divine tongues, glimpses of cities never built, and faces, always faces, watching from behind the veil of thought. The compilation of these 5 books into the Lemegeton is a mystery in itself. No known original exists. Every surviving version is a copy of a copy. Translations differ wildly. Some list the 72 spirits in different orders. Some add or omit names. Some include extra seals or warnings written in ink that fades over time. One edition, found in an Austrian crypt in 1891, had pages made from something resembling skin, and every spirit seal had been altered to include an additional symbol, an eye with no pupil. Scholars have long argued that the Lemegeton is merely an evolution of the Clavicula Salomonis, adapted by Renaissance magicians seeking greater power. But that doesn't explain how the names, those exact same spirits, appear in Arabic texts from the 9th century, or in Babylonian star charts even older. There's a theory buried in one forbidden commentary that Solomon never wrote the Lemegeton at all. He recorded it. That each invocation, each sigil, was dictated to him, not by angels or demons, but by something older, something that used his name to pass safely through time, attaching itself to magicians, scribes, occultists, anyone foolish enough to believe they were the ones in control. Because the Lemegeton does not belong to Solomon. It belongs to what speaks through it. And if you listen too long, it starts speaking back. For every book of Solomon that has survived, there are others that were erased. Not lost to time, but removed. Mentioned in margins, quoted in fragments, spoken of in tones usually reserved for plagues and betrayals. These are the books without names, or worse, with names that should not be spoken more than once. They call them the Black Books, not just for their color, but for the residue they leave. Readers have gone blind, transcribers have gone mute, and yet, across centuries, they reappear, one page at a time, often in dreams, sometimes in whispers, always unfinished. The most infamous is the Liber Nigre Veritatis, the Black Book of Truth. Purported to be written in Solomon's final days, it is said to contain not rituals of power, but rituals of erasure. The ability to remove names from the Book of Life, to undo fate, to rewrite reality by unbinding it. No full copy exists. Only 4 pages have surfaced over the last 600 years, each found in unrelated locations, inside a sealed crypt in Sicily, hidden in the false spine of a Bible in Krakow, stuffed in a hollowed-out jawbone in northern Sudan, and most recently, wrapped in a child's drawing in a condemned asylum outside Boston. Each page describes a ritual so convoluted, so specific, that attempting it without exact replication is said to result in the creation of something, not summoned, not invoked, but written into being. Something that now exists simply because you tried to forget it. Then there's the false key, a counterfeit version of the Clavicula Salomonis that began circulating during the Inquisition. This book looks identical to the original, right down to the seals and the prayers. But its rituals don't bind spirits, they bind readers. After the 3rd ritual, practitioners reportedly stop sleeping, not from insomnia, but because there's someone else already dreaming for them. One surviving monk wrote in a final letter, "The book knows me. It finished itself in my voice, and now it's waiting for me to die, so it can begin again." Other texts exist only by rumor. The seal of unspoken names, referenced once in an alchemical cipher, allegedly contains the hidden syllables that Solomon used to control the 72 spirits, but never dared write in the Lemegeton. These syllables are not words. They are disruptions, sounds that, when spoken aloud, cause reflections to warp and clocks to miscount. One scribe who attempted to recreate them was found with his tongue surgically removed. No tool marks, no blood, no entry wounds. A more obscure work is the Codex of the 9th Veil, which appears only in scattered lineages of Solomonic magic passed through oral tradition. It's said to reveal what Solomon did not want humanity to know, specifically the 9 judges who oversee not demons, but magicians, beings that observe all invocations, not to assist or interfere, but to record. And should you cross a certain threshold of power without offering silence, they arrive not to punish, but to replace. Even more chilling are the books that never existed, or rather, should never have existed. Entire generations of practitioners report dreaming of the same book. No title, no language, only symbols. Some describe it as a spiral of pages, others as a book that continues folding inward, never ending. What unites them is this: every dream ends the same way, flipping to a final page that contains their name, written in handwriting they've never used, with a red mark through it. And they all wake up knowing one thing with certainty: that wasn't the first time they'd read it. Across esoteric circles, these phantom texts are called echo grimoires, books that echo forward from alternate timelines, reaching out not to be read, but to be remembered. They come to those who are nearly ready, who've come close to unlocking something. They arrive like warnings or invitations. And if you ever begin to write one yourself, unintentionally, automatically, then the library may already be using you. Because these lost books don't go missing. They migrate, not through hands, through minds. Why Solomon? Why, among all ancient kings, prophets, and mystics, does his name bind together grimoires written centuries apart in different languages by hands that never touch the same soil? Why do spirits tremble or laugh at his seal? Why do books invoke him, fear him, contradict him, yet all trace their power back to him? Maybe it's because Solomon wasn't just a king. Maybe he was something else entirely, a vessel, a nexus, a man whose curiosity cracked the code between heaven and hell, between thought and creation. And once that code was known, once it had a name, it echoed. Not just through scripture, but through spell, his name became a cipher, not of faith, of authority. It scrawled at the top of summoning circles, etched into rings, whispered in exorcisms, embedded in symbols that make candles flicker and mirrors warp. He became the face of command, so feared by spirits that even when a magician lies, invoking Solomon's name tricks them into obedience. For a moment, sometimes. But the deeper you dig, the more distorted he becomes. Was Solomon the first magician, or the first to record what he stole? Some traditions paint him as a servant of God. Others, especially the forbidden ones, call him a thief of secrets, a binder of beings who were never meant to serve. A man who built holy things using unholy forces and paid a price that's never been fully understood. And that price may still be collecting interest, because the books don't stop. New ones keep appearing, in burned libraries, in basement altars, in anonymous email attachments, scrawled PDFs that weren't downloaded, but delivered. The seals evolve, the names mutate, but the core remains. Power structured by pattern, voice given form by ritual, and fear. Always fear that what was once controlled may now be watching. Not every book bearing Solomon's name is real, but every real one is dangerous. And if you've ever looked at a diagram in one of these grimoires and felt it stare back, if you've ever whispered a name from the Ars Goetia and then paused, waiting, if a strange page has ever appeared between two normal ones, unnumbered, unbound, then you're not just reading, you're being read. And maybe that's the true legacy of Solomon. Not the temples, not the wisdom, not the wealth, but the doors he opened, and the fact that they've never closed.